Assalamu alaikum, hello and welcome. I'm Shazia joining you on the Nutrition Show on Unity FM 93.5 FM. I'm really excited to have you all join me today for a discussion on topics related to nutrition, which I hope may support you and your loved ones with better health and well-being going forward. So as always, and before I get into the topic of the day, I want to remind listeners that all information shared on the show today is general in nature. What does that mean? So for anyone with any medical issues or concerns, or you're listening in and you're thinking, oh, that applies to me, or I'm worried about something, you need to really check in with your own medical practitioner because they know you best and they'll be able to give you the advice that you need to be able to then address that concern or issue. Remember, they're there to help you, they're there to support you, so make sure you utilize the benefit that they can bring. So today's topic then is about tips to support kids with their back to school nutrition. So it's been about a week and everyone's back to school now. We're back to the grind as we kind of know it. The year is kind of on its way. I imagine a lot of you are already doing this, or you're thinking, oh, I could have listened to this a week before. I totally hear you. I hope there'll be something in today's show that you'll be able to take on board and utilize. For some of you, this may be new, and I just hope in whatever capacity you are that it serves you, and that my intention is to kind of give you some tips and pointers that you can utilize. Doesn't matter how small the level, just to kind of get you on that learning journey to support yourself and your family, particularly if you've got younger children, with the best nutrition possible. So how do you feel? I don't know, your first week is actually already gone. You're preparing for the second. Are you feeling stressed, overwhelmed, glad in some ways? I know some parents I speak to, they're like, oh, I'm glad they're back to school so I can get on with my jobs. So maybe a mixture, maybe none of those, maybe something else. I don't know. Maybe you've got some extra, special tips that you use that work really well year in, year out that you might want to call in and share. Wherever you are, like I say, I hope that, you're feeling a little bit more in control now that we've passed the first week. And like I say, if you are listening, I hope that there's something else in here that will serve you and help your kids with more focus, more concentration, better behavior, and everything else that you want your kids to be. So, these 6 weeks, I can't believe how fast they've gone. Every year, it seems that they go even faster than they did the year before. I don't know whether that's kind of just the way time is, or whether, it's just kind of indicating that our lives are really, they're becoming shorter, aren't they, by the day? And I don't mean to sound that in a glum way. I'm saying that in a very practical way, in the sense that maybe we need to do more. And sometimes that's actually about making ourselves more efficient rather than working harder. So I think some of the tips that I've put in today's show are basically addressing that. It's about how we can get more efficient in what we do, rather than defeat the objective, so to speak. Because at the end of the day, we all want healthy bodies. We want to be able to thrive. We want to be able to do the best rather than being survival mode. Some of you may have listened to some of the previous shows that I did when I talked about routine and good habits. This is no different. You need to have that routine and good habits going forward to enable you to benefit, the most from your time, from the resources that you have, from the situation that you're in. So, it's needless to say that, again, these principles will still apply. And if you've actually had a routine over the summer, maybe you'll find it easier going forward. If you haven't, don't beat yourself up about it. There's always change that we can make. Every day is a new opportunity. Grab hold of the opportunity and make the most of it. So, what's the first thing then I want to share today? And, we hear it all the time. We read it on all the articles, on the blogs. We hear it from people who are in the nutrition and health field. So breakfast. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. I think there's a lot of truth about that statement. And, when I've experimented with my own breakfast, I've seen that does actually apply. So it's an experience that I'm sharing with you here rather than just taking it from a textbook. So yes, it is the most important meal of the day. Obviously, each and every one of us have specifics that we need to look at. So, there may be exceptions to this rule. and we may need to alter things for particular people depending on where they are in their health journey and what their individual circumstances are. But on the whole, and by and large, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. So I said that a couple of times on purpose because I really want people to take this in. So if you're not eating breakfast in a general kind of situation, this is something that you really need to pay attention to. Okay, so remember, you've had overnight fast. Hopefully you haven't been eating into the late hours of the night or early hours of the morning, unless obviously you're running a different shift for whatever other reason there may be. But the idea is that you've had an overnight fast, so your body's been without food and water over a decent period of time. We start at 12 hours and increase this overnight fast, and so your body's going to be expecting some good nutrients to get it started for the day, and that's the idea of breakfast. Now, a breakfast, we're going to go into the kind of details about it in a minute, but a breakfast needs to be balanced. So what do I mean by that? No focusing on no one particular nutrient in excess. So for most of us, we need a balanced breakfast, especially for kids. You want them focusing, you want them concentrating on their work, you want them behaving well, you want them to have the benefit of all the different nutrients, and obviously portion sizes and things will matter. But this is something that needs to be looked at on an individual level, depending on what the exact circumstances are. But what I'm trying to say here is that we want to incorporate complex carbohydrates, so not the refined ones. We want things that are in the unadulterated form, with the fiber, with the wheat germ, if we are talking things like wheat, etc. We want them in their whole form, how nature provided them. We don't want them refined and white. Is the kind of the easiest way to recognize them. We want them in their whole form because we want the fibers, we want the slow release energy. We want them to be in their nutritious form. Okay, so that's the one macronutrient. We also want quality protein. So quality meaning that, and again, this is something that you may need to work towards because not everyone can do this straight away. We're looking at sort of meats and things in their best version. So when I mean best version, I'm talking about organic, grass-fed, excuse me. I'm talking about, free range meats which are not pumped with all sorts of additional chemicals and things to, mass produce them. And, the conventional meats can be problematic. So, we want to look at quality protein. But obviously, if you're not having any protein whatsoever, you want to start somewhere. Okay. And in addition to that, we also want healthy fats. So I have talked about what healthy fats are before. If you need a reminder, I'm talking about things like olives, olive oil, nuts and seeds, oily fish, salmon, mackerel, herring, that type of thing. These are all what we could constitute and call healthy fats. And what are these going to do in the right proportions and and prepared in the right way? They're going to help the kids with better metabolism, better learning, better focus, concentration. So when they're in school and when they're outside of school as well. So you don't want them misbehaving when they're at home. You want them to be partaking in extracurricular activities. You want them to be doing, things at home to support you, going to bed on time, all these kinds of things. So we want to be able to provide them with that nutrition that's going to enable these kinds of things to actually happen. So what kinds of examples can you then look at, and what can you incorporate? So you can do whole grain muesli, oatmeal, porridge, and you can use milk to make it more nutritious. Now, milk in and of itself is one of the foods that may not be suitable for everyone. Obviously, this is something that you need to check yourself, for yourself, for your family. In terms of sort of dairy intolerance, there is quite a lot out there. 70% of people don't have the enzymes to digest milk. So, when I work with clients in practice, it's something that I do look at. It's something that is there. It's something that is one of my kind of initial go-tos to kind of support someone's health. But as a blanket advice, it's something that, I wouldn't sort of worry about until you work with someone. So, if you can't tolerate milk, whether that's, from dairy, whether it's from a non-dairy source, you can make your porridge or your oatmeal with milk as opposed to water. Okay, so that's the point I'm trying to make. Now, Homemade versions of these things are going to be far better than what you buy from the stores, so commercially. Now, why? Because you're going to be controlling what goes into them, first of all, so you can choose all the nutritious ingredients that you want to incorporate, those that you like as well. So you're not necessarily having to take out things that you didn't really want in there. So whether it was sultanas or something, you bought from a pre-made muesli or granola, whatever it might be, you can actually put in what you want to first and foremost. Secondly, you don't have to add in the nasties, as I call them, so the sugars, the preservatives, the flavorings, the colors, etc. Things that you don't really need in a breakfast, they can then be omitted because you're choosing what goes in and you know what you're actually eating and what you're putting into your body. So these are all kinds of ways to put you in control, to give you the power, if you like, to kind of choose, as far as possible, what you're putting into your food with the ingredients that you have access to. Of course, we won't know the full story every time, but does that really matter? No, you make changes as and when you can and within your reach. So what do these foods do? They provide sustained energy over time, therefore avoiding the roller coaster that I mentioned. So this blood sugar roller coaster that we want to avoid at every opportunity when we eat. We want to avoid this. So we don't want this spiking of blood sugar and insulin every time we eat food that's actually not beneficial for us because it's in its refined state. So this is equally important for children. What applies to us as adults also applies to children. You want the energies to be sustained throughout the day. So, you want to be combining these ingredients in their whole form, in a balanced way, so that you've got the healthy fats and proteins to kind of offset the spikes in sugar that would otherwise be observed using carbohydrate sources alone. And obviously, the more refined a carbohydrate is, that's what's going to spike your blood sugar more. So we want to kind of avoid these foreseen issues, because they do have a long-term impact and they do have significant health risks. Okay, so these options also provide B vitamins, which are essential, great sources of B vitamins, important for many, many different reasons and functions in the body, including appropriate brain function. So you want your kids learning, don't you? You want them to be able to absorb the information that they're actually receiving in school. So the idea is that, you want to enhance their learning. So, diet's going to certainly help with this. Now, oats may also be consumed by making overnight oats. Really easy. Just go online in your browser, type it in overnight and oats recipe, simple, healthy, whatever you want to put in there. And, you will have a plethora of, recipes that are so easy to make. There's no effort required. For people who say they cannot do this, I can't understand it and that's my rant for today, because it's so simple. I used to do it for years, and I think what happened with me is I got oat fatigue, so I stopped eating them, and I'm planning to go back. But you got to vary it. Once you start getting into a habit, you need to start varying. You need to make it exciting. Food needs to be fun and exciting. If you're not making it fun and exciting, you're going to give up. So, do this, and it's as simple as adding oats to milk. If you want to add a sweetener of your choice, I add a little bit of honey or maple syrup, or you can even add in a couple of dates shredded into there. And then you're just literally mixing it up in a jar overnight in the fridge, and it's ready to go in the morning. So, what could be easier than that? If you get yourself some nice organic whole oats, rolled oats, that's the nicest way to do it, because you don't want to be eating foods that are laden with pesticides wherever you can. Obviously, this is a push, for a lot of us, and I understand that. But remember, we're working our way towards an optimal nutrition. It's kind of a journey. It's not something that happens overnight, and that's understandable. But remember, you start where you're at and start to build. So overnight oats. You can also do this with chia. So chia seeds, very cheap and easy to buy now. Even the Asian supermarkets are stocking it. There's no excuse. And you can soak them overnight. So I used to do chia with milk, nut milk on my choice. I used to add a little bit of rose water because I like the Turkish delight flavor. I used to add a bit of cocoa powder, and then if I really needed a sweetener, a little bit of maple syrup. But to be honest, over time I've got used to not consuming sweeteners, and my palate is now quite happy with that. I do get my cravings, don't get me wrong, But start where you're at. If you need a little bit of sweetener, maple syrup, a little bit of honey, you can add that in. Give it a good mix in a jar in the fridge, ready, in the morning to consume. And it's, these are all ways and means that we can really get in a good breakfast for ourselves and for our kids. So yeah, try those two. If you haven't, again, go online, get yourself a recipe so you know the proportions. I haven't talked about proportions. You will need to get the proportions right, otherwise you're going to go from having a really thick, stodgy porridge to a really thin, runny drink, and you want something in between. But obviously, if you want a drink, you can make it thinner. If you want it slightly thicker, you can add less fluid. You can top these off with chia seeds, desiccated coconut, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds. You can use a nut butter. You can use frozen, berries if you allow them to thaw, fresh berries if you have them to hand. All of these are going to add flavor, texture. It's going to make you, excited about your food. I find that's a big element for me. I need to be excited when I see my food. It's going to really help you to take breakfast to another level. There's no reason why we can't make breakfast exciting. And these things don't take time. It's all about planning. You need to, if you respect yourself enough, you will do it. That's what I believe. And we can make excuses until the cows come home, but really, we're at a time, and I'm seeing it with the children on the street. I'm seeing it with children in families. I'm seeing it with children when I'm out in a park, for a walk. I'm worried. I'm really worried. When I look at people, I worry what I see. I'm not sort of, perfect example, but I worry. And this is why I'm taking the time to do these talks and to write, research and write the material, because I really want people to use this as an impetus for change, because if we're not going to do it today, when are we going to do it? When? That's the question I have for you if you're thinking, oh, this is not for me. Okay, so another healthy breakfast idea is a smoothie bowl. So this is something I only recently came across, and I love the idea because I love smoothies. So what do you do here? So you make up a smoothie as you would do normally, and this you pour this into a bowl when it's complete, and you want to top this off. So you want to decorate it again, creating excitement, creating variety, adding different things in, making that smoothie even more nutritious than it is to begin with. So what can you add? Again, chia seeds, seeds of other types. Poppy is lovely. I've tried poppy seeds before. Melon seeds are really nice as well. Think about, desiccated coconut, flaked coconut. You can even add things like sultanas in small quantities. If you like the sweetness of them. Think about nuts and seeds if you're able to tolerate them. The nuts that we get through packets of nuts at home. So think about things like cashew nuts in moderation. They tend to be fungal, so not the ideal, but okay in moderation. Almonds are great. Walnuts are great. Pecans, if you can, treat yourself to a packet of pecans once in a while. So these are all options that you can then utilize to make that smoothie bowl even more exciting than it is. And change up the smoothies. Again, if you go online, so many healthy versions of smoothies. Try and focus on more veg than fruit, because we want kind of the fibers and the lower sugar options in there. But don't kind of worry if you need to go more fruit to begin with, and then kind of filter that down. So if you add a carrot in there, a tomato in there, I find frozen berries are an absolute godsend. Frozen berries are brilliant. Add your kale in there, your spinach. I find kale very difficult to eat, so I usually have my kale in a smoothie. So these are ways and means that you can actually try other things that maybe you've never thought of before. Okay, so for those of you who like your bread in the morning, your toast, not everything is lost. So don't lose heart, because it's not a problem in and of itself. But this is what you can try and do if you are doing this. So I'm thinking about my nan used to have a piece of white toast with some butter and some jam. So, and my aunt as well. So, these are not the best way to have your toast in the morning. What can you do instead? So here I am with some solutions. So if you're doing that, don't lose heart. Just pay attention to what you can actually do instead. And it's just a slight alteration. Okay. So make it more nutritious by choosing whole grain options, and then add protein and healthy fat to increase that nutrition further and balance your blood sugar levels. So how do you do this? So think of it as a mini meal. What you can do is have your toast it, using nice quality butter of some sort. And then think about hummus, or guacamole where you've mashed up a nice avocado. I like to make it fresh rather than buy it. I think there's a huge difference. And then you can spread that on your toast. Use some smoked salmon. Now, smoked fish, I personally don't think that's the best way to consume fish, but if it's something that you want to start trialing, it's an option. Alternatively, just open up a can of sardines or mackerel, and you can use that if you're really brave. Pop that onto your toast as well. Some sliced tomatoes. If you're a cheese eater, you might want to try some mozzarella on there, just to give it a little bit more flavor. There's so many different options. You can even use feta if you're into the more salty type of cheese. You can really make a little mini meal out of it, and that bread then isn't so much of an issue. It's not just kind of spiking your blood sugar and enjoying the buzz that the bread gives you. It's giving you a bit more of a kind of a balanced meal whilst enjoying the food that you would normally consume. Okay, so these are things that you can really try and incorporate. Now, a common question that I come across as a nutritionist, and I've experienced myself in my home, and for clients as well, is that what should you do with cereal? Is cereal a problem, or is it something that we can just kind of continue to consume? Now, the cereal in and of itself isn't necessarily bad, but what you need to do is you need to become label literate. You need to start reading what it is that you're consuming. Now, the boxes and things look amazing. There's a lot of marketing work that goes in that makes us want to kind of consume a lot of the foods that we do. Don't be fooled by that. Read what's on the label, and you want to invest in your body and in your health. So if you want to make this a reality, you need to start reading labels. And I've talked about this before. Now, you've got the green light system on the front, which shows you, in a sort of snapshot what you're actually getting from your cereal. That's very helpful. But you want to start reading and finding out what these cereals are actually all about, and whether they are actually serving purpose for that most nutritious meal of the day. Okay, so I'm not going to say a lot more. The research is out there. It's about going online, spending some time for yourself and your family, researching what actually is going to benefit you in terms of providing nutrition to your body when you wake from a fast. So is it actually serving your body? So you need to ask yourself that question. I was speaking to someone else just the other day, with a child addicted to a sugary cereal, and we had a conversation about it. And I these conversations are very common. I think people really need to start taking ownership of the foods that they're putting into their body, and cereals, I think, are a big one. So I would say, please take time to look at the cereals, look at whole versions of foods, look at the way, ingredients are added unnecessarily. And, this will ultimately help you to make better choices going forward. There was a time my family and I, we loved cereal. We were always at the dinner table in the morning for cereal. And I remember collecting tokens for toys and for, books and things like that. And, some of those we still have today, which is quite interesting. But, I know we were like, kind of drawn in, if you like, to cereal for that reason. Puzzles on the back of boxes and things. I don't know if they do this now because we don't buy cereal in our home. But it's something that was a very strong kind of factor for us as a family growing up. This is many years ago. Alhamdulillah, things have changed since, and it's something that we really need to be mindful of. You're going to really appreciate the changes you see in your body when you start looking at these factors. Okay, so if you, again, as I said, if you're thinking, I can't do any of this. I haven't got the time. I haven't, my kids don't wake up on time. They go to bed late. This is all about routine and planning. So when your kids are at school, when they're in their classroom, they've got a timetable. So between 9 to 10, they've probably got a lesson. From 10 to 11, they've got the second lesson. 11 to 12, maybe they've got a break in there. Now, if you timetable something in, you'll do it. So you've got to do the same thing when it comes to your nutrition. You've got to timetable it in. Which hour of the day have you got that you can make the breakfast for the next day? Now, this does work, and we've done it before. We've done it during Ramadan because we just didn't have the time. We used to go to bed and then wake up. to fast, to consume suhoor. So for us, it worked as a family, and I think it can work in the same way on a normal day, just for making breakfast when you've got a young family to look after. So preparing breakfast in advance, that's the key. And that is something that can work. How? Chia pudding and overnight oats can work. You need a couple of minutes of an evening, pop it in the fridge, and it's done. I wouldn't make huge amounts because the foods do go off. And now with this hotter weather that we're experiencing at the moment, you don't want to be doing that. Yeah, you don't want to be overloading the fridge with stuff to keep cool. And then, you may not want to consume that over a 2 or 3 day period anyway. I would only make enough for a day or two at most and see how you go. Okay, so you can easily make those. You can easily make a tray of oat bars. Again, go online, look for a recipe, oat bars, date balls. These are all things that you can do very easily to kind of make in advance. You can even freeze some of these things. You need to look at how they can be made, how they can be stored. You can do a batch of pancakes and store those. You can freeze those as well. Waffles as well. So look at the healthy waffle options. If you've got a waffle maker, you're laughing. Think about how you can start to make little practical steps like these, day to day in your life. We boil eggs overnight and keep them, like I said, during Ramadan, this is what we were doing. And they're ready to go the following day. Again, don't make too many. Can make enough for maybe a day or two. And they're ready for you in the morning. It's not the same as having a hot egg, but you can do that on the weekend when you have a little bit more time. But this will be there for you in the morning, ready to go. Okay, so just to kind of remind you before I kind of talk more about this topic, all the information that I'm sharing is very general in nature. These are just practical tips that I've researched, that I've kind of suggested myself, that I've gone through with myself, and I've seen in other families as well. And they're there to kind of help you to incorporate them into your life as you feel they can help you. So it's not constituting any medical advice. I'm not sort of advising you to do any of these particular things. No, that's not my place to do on a general kind of show. I do this on a one-to-one level in my clinics because I can do that. I know the person more closely and I know what they're doing. I know their medical history. I know all the things about them. But this is there for you to kind of take on board and kind of understand, from a very general level. We can't really sort of do that on this kind of show. So, it's what you can take out of it in that way. Okay, so what about then moving on to healthy lunches? Now, this is another one that people may struggle with, especially if you're preparing a lunchbox for your child. Now, I don't know how many of you out there are kind of just saying, oh, I don't need to know this because my child eats at school, which is fine. I know I loved school dinners when I was in sort of my later education years in school. I can't say they were the healthiest at the time. I know things have come a long way, and I know that the government's taken a massive stance in making meals more nutritious in schools. These are things that are changing year in, year out. But for those of you who are thinking, okay, what can I do for my child who's going to be taking a lunchbox to school, because they're not going to eat what I make, and I just buy stuff and I just put it in there, which I can understand. So, we need to kind of focus again, and I've talked about this before. What can you do to make your child's lunch more nutritious and exciting? So remember, we have to have this discussion whether we like it or not. It's just how we then go ahead and incorporate it. That's the kind of the challenge. Yeah, so it's a given that we need to give them more vegetables, more healthy versions of fruits in moderation. We need to give them more, get them sort of exposed to more vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients. We need to kind of diversify their diet. We need to do these things regardless of whether we like the idea or not, because that's what's going to keep our bodies going, for as long as possible, as well as possible. So, we want them to eat variety. We want them to eat, kind of the rainbow food that I talked about. So I know this is a term that is kind of, having other connotation now to it, but we are talking about different colors of foods, from red all the way through to, violet, grays, blues, blacks, everything. So we're looking at variety, we're looking at color. Why? Because each one of these foods groups or these food types is going to provide us with a different phytonutrient. It's going to provide us with a different multivitamin, mineral. It's going to provide us with nutrition that is going to be unique to itself. And we want to get as much as we can in. Why? Because we want to be able to allow our bodies to utilize the benefits of these foods in all the different health benefits then they then go on to provide us with. So we do need to get our children eating in the same way. Remember, you need to start where you're at and build. 5 a day has become 10 a day by the NHS. So, we've got no excuse. Nutritionally, from a naturopathic perspective, it's actually higher. We need to be consuming at least, I think, is it between 25 to 40, depending on what you read, different types of foods every week to give us the nutrients that we need. Now, that's not easy, but it's not difficult either. So it's about effective planning. Yeah, so this is going to be harder for the younger children, I would imagine. I don't know. You might understand that better. Every family is different, but it's about kind of setting good habits from the beginning. Okay, so what kinds of ideas can you then might want to consider? So sandwiches are the obvious. I mean, I'm sure most of you are probably sick of listening to people going on about sandwiches, been there, done it, and every day could be a sandwich day. But sandwiches don't need to be boring. Think about them. Think about using different fillings. Think about using a variety of wraps and breads. It doesn't always have to be a gluten version. It can be a non-gluten version. Think about wraps. Think about even using sort of pancakes. You don't have to always use a bread. You need to kind of diversify the idea of a sandwich. It doesn't have to be the old, understanding of what a sandwich is. Okay, so what can you do? Make them exciting, change things up. That's the key. Yeah. So an option I kind of recently kind of embraced was sushi. So I don't know whether your child will be open to that. I know people don't really like the idea, but vegetable sushi is a good idea. You can even try making your own if you're creative. So try vegetable sushi rolls, and you can add cucumbers, peppers, carrots, avocado. You can add in all sorts of vegetables into that to kind of increase um, the vegetable, the color content. Obviously, pair it with a good protein source. So if you're not putting any fish in there and making it a fish sushi as well, you want to kind of pair it up with another protein source. So whether it's a little bit of cheese, or whether you're putting some nuts and seeds in there, whether you're using chicken or something to kind of balance that blood sugar. Yeah, so muffins are great. So into muffins you can put all sorts of vegetables. Yeah, you think about the savory cakes that you can bake. Great way to hide things like spinach and kale. Works really, really well. So think about adding as many vegetables to that as well. So carrots, sweet potatoes, spinach, you know, so many different things. You can make them cheesy if you want to. You can add all sorts of flavors, herbs and spices. These are a great way to get nutrition as well as provide a healthy lunch, sorry. As I mentioned, wraps are a good idea. So think whole grain when you do them. And into those, you can add chicken, egg, fish, whatever your child will consume. Obviously, there might need to be access to a fridge on the hotter days, or something where this food's not kind of sitting around in baking temperature. So kind of find out what facilities are available, and then kind of design your lunches around that. Homemade soups, why not? Old fashioned work really well. Again, think of what you can add to make them nutritious. Make sure there's a protein source in there as well. You can also sort of just go down the salads option if your kids will consume them. Again, make them fun. Add some cheese into there if they're able to tolerate them. Some shredded chicken. Might want to put beans, lentils in there. Whatever they will consume, make them and then dress these salads, because how boring is a salad if you don't dress them? You want to kind of make them fun and exciting. Experiment at home, and then whatever they like, you can then send them to school with as well. And you can always make excess and use the excess that you made or on an evening, for example, for the next day for lunches. Why not? You can do it for yourself. You can do it for your kids. If you've got that sort of lunchbox where you've got sections in there, so you've got like divided compartments, think about putting something different in each one. Make it colourful, make it sort of exciting, different flavours, and get kids to experiment with what they like, and then think about what you can add to them. So things like chopped up vegetables, vegetable sticks. You might want to put eggs in some of them. You might want to do a dip, in one. A little bit of a carbohydrate like quinoa, a bit of pasta. You can do all sorts of things, and mini muffins. You might want to put some cakes in there, like rice cakes or oat cakes, a bit of fruit. You know, think about what you can do to kind of make that lunchbox really exciting, colorful, bright, and nutritious. We've been doing this at home. Again, it's not something I would recommend on a regular basis, but you can get the rice pastry and make rolls. So you can do lots of different things in advance. I mean, we cook them in the air fryer, so they're really quick and easy. No oil kind of dripping off them at the end. Very light. So you can do chicken, which we do quite a lot. The chicken mince, and you can add in vegetables to that. You can do the right. You can do the noodles. You can do vegetables of different types. Use sweet potato in place of white potato. Um, the options are endless, and that crispy kind of rice pastry is quite light, so you can do that as an occasional lunch as well. And then serve that with a salad. You can do pasta salad. You can do various kind of vegetables in like a couscous style, base, or you can do um, quinoa or bulgur is quite good. And then you can dress that with a nice vinaigrette style dressing, adding in vegetables like cucumbers, like peppers, like tomatoes. Um, you can even add in like pomegranate seeds and, or something like that. It really does give it, that additional kind of benefit, and makes it exciting, makes it different. Dips are great. So, does that only have to be the usual stuff like hummus? No, you can do guacamole, you can do black bean, you can do a herb dip. There are so many. If you go to a supermarket and you go to the dip section, you can get some ideas about what you can try and make yourself. It's quite a variety actually, and I'm really taken aback by the different ways that you can actually, utilize dips. They're really, really interesting, different. Again, experiment at home, see what your kids like, and then you can send them to school with these. You can even use nut and seed butters if you want to. And then, pair these with things like veggie sticks like carrots, cucumber, tomatoes, avocado, peppers are great. You can even use things like peas and corn if you want as well. So these are all options that you can then incorporate into lunch. Remember, it doesn't have to be a boring sandwich. These are things that you can easily do. Okay, so I think I've talked quite a lot there, and there's a lot of information you've already, had to kind of hear me out there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a short break, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about what you can sort of then do in terms of dinners and other things as well. And if I've got time, I'll throw in some extra tips in there as well. If not, it's information for another show. So please stay tuned. I'm going to be diving into more. I hope that this has served you already, and it's giving you ideas about what you can try to incorporate over, the overwhelm that I'm sure, some of us are experiencing. So back within a short while. You're listening to me, Shazia, on the Nutrition Show on Unity FM 93.5 FM. Back with you shortly. Assalamu alaikum, welcome back. This is Shazia on Unity FM 93.5 FM. So before the break, I was talking about healthy breakfast and lunch ideas for kids going back to school. Obviously, you can use this all year round. It's just something that I'd like to kind of bring to the table, pun intended, to kind of help people to understand that, there's so much that they can do and get started with. If they've not started the journey already, and that, there's so much information out there that can help you. So, the idea is to give you the tips, to get you started, to get you thinking, working with professionals when you need to, and, really kind of making this part of your journey and your family's journey, because you want your family to succeed in whatever they choose to do. And this is going to be a huge part of it. So, please take on board the tips that I'm mentioning. As I mentioned before, none of this constitutes medical advice. It's there for information. It's there for learning purposes. If you do feel that there's something in here that is resonating with you in a particular way, particularly if you're worried about something, remember to always speak to your doctor first, because they will be your first port of call. They are the ones who are going to be able to manage a medical problem, who are going to be able to advise you. And then, there's no reason why you shouldn't seek out support from a nutritional therapist, work with someone more specifically to get that more tailored approach if that's what you're seeking. Okay, so I'm going to jump into talking more about other things that you can now do. So dinner is another one that we're going to talk about shortly. So, the idea is to kind of seek out recipes that work for you, go online, try them out. And if they work for you, write them down somewhere. Whether you save them as a link on your phone or your computer somewhere, great. Ideally, a chart on a wall works really well. So you've got a very maybe a couple of pointers for that particular recipe that you can just then use and utilize, very quickly. Whether you're preparing all your meals at the weekend or whether you're preparing of an evening some nights, whatever it is that works for you and your family, you want to have those recipes kind of ready to go when you need them. So, it works for each person in a way that kind of works around their lifestyle. So, what about dinner then? So, there's a lot of stuff there for breakfast and lunch we talked about. Lunch can obviously use the rest of the ideas that can also be used for dinner. But, dinner, the idea of dinner, and I know this is probably maybe old school. I am old school, unfortunately. For me, it kind of, it's always meant family time. I don't know if that resonates with you as well, but dinner for me has always meant kind of switching off from the world, switching off from the environment around you, the stresses, coming together, sharing your experiences of the day, listening to your kids, what they did at school, listening to your spouse if you've got one. That's what dinner has always been to me. And I understand that life's not like that now, and people are working different shifts, and kids are doing extracurricular things and then going to, I don't know, a madrasa or something. So I get it. It doesn't always work that way. But if you can, it's something that when I was growing up, I found really blessed in our home. And I really miss that because even in my home, that's not always possible for a whole range of reasons. And it's something I really do miss. I really miss that. So if that's something that you can do in your home, I would really encourage it. However you can make it happen, even if it's like an odd half hour where you switch everything off, phones are off, TV's off, you're really just focused on the meal in front of you and your family, giving them your time while they give you theirs. You'll find that meal that you have is far more blessed. Now, I'm sure there's a Islamic reasoning behind this as well. And yeah, that's something I really want to kind of touch on because that really that's coming from my heart. I can feel that kind of emotion related to that, and food binds us in that way. How we see food as a social thing as well, and I think that can be done every day if it's possible. Obviously, if not, obviously work around things that you can make that happen other times of the day, in the week, whatever it may be. So for dinners then, I find the easiest thing to do in my home is to prepare a large single dinner. So what do I mean by that? So this is where I get my pressure cooker out and I do, 2 chickens in there, or I will do, lentils in there. And, I find that the food will last a couple of days for us, just having done that. And it's kind of spares me from the cooking for, 2 or 3 days. And it works brilliant because you just change things up. So that chicken, for example, I'll shred it, put it in a salad. I'll shred it, put it onto a pizza. I'll use it in a sandwich. And it's varied. Everyone will do something different with however they want to consume it. And the lentils is great because it can be used as a starter. It can be used as a main meal. I might make some, I don't know, some brown rice with it, or some quinoa or something, or have it on its own with a salad. You can really vary it. So it just gives you that kind of space to, do other things maybe on the next few days if you don't really want to be focusing on cooking. So it's great. And, what you need to remember is to allow yourself some time to pre-soak if you're using, beans, etc., lentils from a packet. Obviously, the tinned options don't, kind of bypass that. And then also for me, cleaning meats and things, that takes me a long time and it stresses me out sometimes. But you need to allow yourself that time to do that. Okay, so that's where the pressure can come in. Obviously, give yourself the time. When you've got a little bit more time on your hands, you can do this, and it's worth it. Okay, so obviously start where you're at. The idea is that we focus on foods that are more nutritious. So we want meats again, as I mentioned, that are organic, grass fed, etc., etc. These are longer term goals for most of us, and it doesn't matter where you are. Try and work towards those. Okay, so as I mentioned, tinned options are not so much of a problem. You can do them much quicker. You probably don't even have to pressure cook those options. Um, if you're using them occasionally from time to time, no problem at all. But obviously, bear in mind that tinned foods have their own issues and concerns that we need to think about. But again, this is working to, extremes or real optimal situations rather than working to a practical level, which is what most of us are at. Okay, so vary things. You don't want to do the same things all the time because you're going to get bored. And then start pairing them, as I mentioned, with healthy versions. So whether that's a gluten-free pasta or equivalent, whether that's kind of beans that you want to make up as a salad. We do that with chickpeas quite often in our home. Add in avocados, onions, tomatoes, dress it really well. It can be a healthy side. You can really do lots of different things with these. So the other option that we kind of incorporate a lot is our soups. So you can make them as filling as you want or as light as you want. Very nutritious. A key thing that I like to have in our kitchen at home is a really good quality stock cube. So go for organic, really nice flavored, a good brand of a stock cube, because you'll never kind of regret doing that. Obviously, if they're not available to hand when you're making your soup, season as you would normally, and just taste before you kind of start cooking your soup. Add in as many vegetables as you can. I put in the vegetables I can't eat, so things like kale, I find it very hard to consume. I put them into a soup, and mushrooms is the other one that I will put into a soup as well. So, put as many in as you can. You'll be surprised how many vegetables you can actually get into a soup. You add your herbs and spices if you're not using a stock cube, which might already have them in. Really do think about your nutrition, how you can actually really bump it up, really high by incorporating things like soups. And we do it all the time. It's kind of a cheat option, and it works really, really well. I also add nutritional yeast because I like the cheesy flavor. You can add protein powder in there as well. Think about amounts. You don't want to go overboard because you want it to be a nice consistency. You can add in lots of different things. As I said, a soup really is a very clever way to consume food in a nutritious way. I found that time and time again. Just the other day, I made and I don't recommend this one as a particular one. It was just something that we had ingredients for, and I needed to use them up. So we did a potato and leek soup, and then we paired that with a protein sauce. So that's an option as well. Again, it's not the most nutritious option. There are better recipes out there that you can look into and utilize. Okay, so you might find one that works really well for you. Obviously, every family is different. I find that soups are a good way to hide things, hide nutrition, and when you've got fussy eaters, it can work really well. Just make sure that they're palatable. You don't want to be adding stuff just for the sake of it and then finding that your family's not going to consume it because it wasn't really all that palatable in the end. Okay, so as I mentioned, before, that kind of sitting together and eating has a huge impact. And remember, your kids are seeing you eat, so they're learning from you. You're their role model, whether you kind of acknowledge that or not. You are their role model. The mother is the first school for the child. So, whether you think you're having an influence on your child or not, you actually are. So you want to be setting good habits. If you know that you had habits in the past, and many of us did, because obviously back in the days, I mean, I'm going on a few years now, but back in the days, this information wasn't available to us. Our mums and dads didn't have this information, so they didn't really have the kind of the luxury of making these nutritious choices for us. We ate really what was kind of available, and it was kind of the situation. On your way back from school, we'd pop into the shop and we'd buy crisps and drinks and sweets and things like that. So this was normal in those days, but that is not the norm now. Not with the information that's available, not with the resources that are available, not with the health awareness that is happening. So you want to be that role model for your child, wanting better for them, and I know you do. And as a parent, that's kind of a given. I don't think that's different for any parent in any way. You want to give them the best, and you want to give them better than you had. So, you want to set positive examples, good habits. You want to motivate them. And you can only do that by motivating yourself first. So, encourage them in activities where they're able to kind of participate. So, depending on the age of your child, depending on the maturity level, how responsible they are, because all children are different. Because I look at my nieces and nephews, and they're different to, the neighbors' kids, for example. So I see very, differences in different children. Engage them. If you've got an older child, get them to chop the stuff. Chop the veg and fruit, etc. If you've got a younger child, maybe they can open packets for you. You know, and maybe they can go and get something, retrieve something for you from a cabinet. Get them involved, make them feel that they are part and parcel of this learning journey. Because if you do that, if they're exposed to this kind of change, they're going to want to know. It's going to make them inquisitive. It's going to make them want to learn more and do more. And it's not a case of I'll prepare the meal and you just eat it. It's not the way to go, because you want them to be able to then grow up to be responsible, mature adults who will be ready to serve their bodies well and then serve others well as a result of it. So you want to do that from a very early age. And children, oh my goodness, I mean, my niece has got a 6-month-old, and I can't believe how inquisitive and how engaged she is with her environment. And I can see children of that age, God bless her, I can see children of that age really, you know, doing more with their lives than we did when we were growing up. And so if we don't set these examples for them now, they're going to learn from sources that are not always the best. So we do have a responsibility to do that. As we want to kind of engage in what I talked about on a previous show, mindful eating. So these are my tips that are more practical and more kind of, you know, kind of not so much food focused, but kind of the behavior side of things. You want to teach a child mindful eating. As I said, switch off phones, switch off the TV. You don't need these things, no games. They should be engaged with their food. If the food is on the table, they need to sit at the table and engage themselves with the food. They need to be able to appreciate the food. How many children out there do not eat? Our kids won't know that unless you explain that to them. I'm not saying that we should expose our kids to everything that's going on in the world, because I know needs to be a balance. But you want to show children how fortunate they are, the food that's in front of us, how blessed it is, how lucky we are to sit down and eat together as a family. Many people don't have these luxuries. We need to appreciate that we're given more. Okay, so chewing well, swallowing, all these things are important, as I mentioned before. We want to be able to chew our food thoroughly so that we're not, ending up with all sorts of problems with digestive issues later on. You know, Teaching them about how, we want to kind of eat when we should be eating and not eating all day long. Are the kids thirsty? Is that why they're wanting to eat during the day? Maybe they didn't eat enough protein or fats. That's why they're kind of like now feeling a bit, you know, um, hungry again after they've just eaten. Think about all these things as you prepare your meals and teach them. Because the more you learn, the more you can then teach. Because that's what I do. So when you learn what a carbohydrate food is, what a protein food is, what a fat food is, you can educate them. That's when you can then educate. So this is how I work. I educate myself and then I pass on the learning. You can talk to them about how, these foods are going to benefit them once you know the benefits. And it's going to help them to understand how, generally, and on the longer term, how they make good decisions for themselves and their families in the future. Okay, so remember, learning is going to start at home. It's going to start in the kitchen. So, get them involved, get them kind of doing things that are kind of at their level. And then, increase that as they get older, increase the responsibilities, make it fun, make it exciting, give them a chance to kind of give their ideas as well. So if they want to try something and they've seen something, maybe, maybe a friend's been consuming that perhaps a healthier food rather than a non-healthier food, give them a chance to try that. Take them shopping with you, go to different supermarkets of different cultures and see what's available. Try something new, once a week, once every 2 weeks, whatever works for you. Don't need to burden yourself. Make it something that works for you. Choose nights in for particular foods, whether that's a Mexican or an Italian or an Indian, if you don't normally consume Indian foods. Make it a really nice kind of pleasurable activity rather than a boring, oh, it's time to eat again, what do I cook? Because that really, really does help a lot. So just as we finish off, then I'm not going to go into too much more, but hydration is a big one. And I'm still seeing it now. I mean, in this hotter weather, you really need to be mindful. We're not drinking enough, most of us. You need to find out what is right for you, what is the level that you need, what is the level that your kids need. One practitioner I was listening to the other day said that you'll know you're drinking enough when your urine is clear, your pee is clear. So that's how she was gauging whether you're hydrated enough. Obviously, you don't. If you're having headaches, you're feeling groggy, you're feeling tired. These could be signs of dehydration, not necessarily, but can be. If your skin is kind of like showing signs of lacking elasticity, these could be signs of dehydration as well. You want to be mindful, and you want to replace electrolytes when you're sweating. You want to be choosing appropriate sources of hydration. I'm not talking about pop, I'm not talking about excessive caffeine, coffee, that kind of thing. I'm talking about water. Filtered water is what you need. Yeah, so you want to kind of think about how you take water out with you when you're out, using an app or a reminder of some sort, encouraging one another. Water is essential. Many of us are dehydrated. We're really suffering. Our bodies are really, crying out for water. You want to stay away from these sugar laden, preservative laden, um, you know, all sorts of things that maybe we don't even know about that goes into some of these drinks. You want to really kind of focus on clean filtered water. Whether I mean, the ideal situation here is a whole house filter. But if you can't do that, get yourself a filter jug. Invest in something. I was speaking to someone yesterday at a stall, and that's what I said to him, and I think he's going to do that. So you know go the guy who came down to see me at the stall yesterday in Aston, that's what he's going to do. And I hope that other people will take little measures on board to help them to start looking after their bodies in this way. This is your liquid of choice. This is something that you really do need to really buy into, and get your families thinking about as well. Okay, so I did have more points, but I don't have time to cover them. So, like I said, I'll try and do that for another show. Lots and lots of things that I could cover with you, and I work with when I work in my clinics. As I mentioned today, none of this was medical advice. The tips and things that you can start to look at, incorporate, um, use things that are going to, benefit you and your family. You know, we've got to kind of help each other. If you've got tips that work really well, share them with your friends and family. Call in, let us know as well. We learn consistently. I mean, I'm learning from my clients. Every time I see a new client, I learn, which I really love. I love the constant learning that comes with this role. Remember, we're there to support one another. We want general health for everyone. There's goodness in there. Wish for yourself what you wish for another. Why is that any different when it comes to nutrition? So I really hope that what you've heard today has served you in some capacity. It's been insightful. Get to looking into what could work for you. I would love to hear your thoughts. As I've mentioned, you can always call in, and we're always happy to hear what serves. If you've got ideas for future shows, that would be incredible, because sometimes I'm sitting there scratching my head thinking, what do I talk about this week? I'd love to hear from you. So yeah, grateful for another opportunity to connect with you. So this is Shazia on the Nutrition Show on Unity FM 93.5 FM. I look forward to joining you once again soon. Take care until next time. Wassalamu alaikum.